Welcome back to another episode of the Man That Can Project podcast. I'm your host, Lockie Stewart, and today we have Ruari Fairbairns joining us, and you're in Mallorca, Spain. I thought you were in the UK, but it's even more exciting to hear because it's a beautiful, beautiful place. And I was actually checking out your Instagram before and saw you were on a boat a couple of days ago, just having a day out of the office, and it looked spectacular. And I definitely would trade spots with you being here in sunny Brisbane as well. But Ruari, it's awesome to have you on here, and you're obviously the founder of 1 Year No Beer, which I've been doing a whole heap of research about what it all is, and I love what it's about, and I love that you have an incredible community of around 80,000 people across 90 countries, which shows that people are flocking to it. What you're doing is working. The community that you've built is definitely empowering, and the success stories that I was reading over just very, very inspiring. And as I was just mentioning to you a moment ago, as soon as my wedding's done, I'm going to dive into the 1 Year No Beer challenge, and I look forward to seeing how I feel. I know that from previous experiences of reducing alcohol, the mental clarity, the energy, the focus, the productivity is incredible. So 1 year will be a good time for myself. But mate, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's 7 a.m. Over there.
Thank you for having me on.
But yeah, I'll hand it over to you. I really would love for yourself, obviously, to share more about how you got started with the 1 Year No Beer, what it's been like, the process of building the community and everything that's gone along with that. And definitely some key points that I'd love to touch on that would benefit our audiences, drinking at work meetings. It seems to be an excuse that a lot of guys come back to me over the weekend or Monday. They're like, "Oh, I just had to close that work deal and I had to have a few wines." I'm like,
"Yeah,
you're better than the wine." And then also just beers in the workplace on the job site is a big thing as well. So yeah, we look forward to diving into that.
Got lots of things to talk about there, and it will all be revealed why when I give a bit of background story. So, well, thank you very much for having me on. This is a topic very, very close to my heart, and mental health and my own journey, and helping men be better version of themselves is a real key driver for me. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to spread the message. So let's wind backwards a little bit. And I was originally born on the Isle of Mull, on the west coast of Scotland, and like many areas of the world, it's synonymous with drinking culture. I grew up even in nappies watching aunties, parents, their friends celebrate, commiserate, and congratulate with alcohol. And I guess that's like most places in the world, right? We all see that going on. And yeah, I had a pretty crazy brain, super hyperactive, and on the Isle of Mull, I didn't really know what to do with these things. And so 6 years old, I was offered an ultimatum: drugs, or my parents were rather, drugs or counseling. And they chose counseling, and it was very fortunate for me, because that's what started the process of me trying to understand what was going on inside this brain of mine. And through my younger years, my parents, they were, you're amazing, and you're gifted and you're special, and the world outside would say you're bad and you're naughty and disruptive, and and these labels. And so that kind of grew this split between me. And the noise inside my head grew incessant, so incessant that when I hit 13 years old, I decided to exit stage left. And I had a suicide attempt. And the second attempt of suicide, it was a bit of a miracle I survived. And coming back from that, and my parents sort of really desperate to try and help me see what the good was, and help me see that I was actually special, and what they saw. They encouraged me to write a letter to somebody inspirational. And so I chose Richard Branson, and I wrote a letter to Richard Branson. And amongst the things I said, "Look, I'm going to change the world one day, and I'm looking forward to having lunch with you." Mr. B never replied. He was obviously busy, so lunch is definitely on him. And at 15 years old, I then ventured off, quit school before the legal age, and set up my first company. And by the time I was 25, I'd tried 5 different enterprises. I was absolutely laser focused on being, and having a massive impact in the world. And because I kind of had this belief inside, I know somewhere in that, my parents are right, and I could feel it inside myself. I know I'm going to have it, but I just didn't know what it was. And all the way through this, I was still partying like a madman. I was first in the bar. I was last out. I was, the one who was climbing on the scaffolding and everything else, and always making an absolute fool of myself, center of attention. I was the one calling shots, and yet I was also the one working the hardest. And so this continued. And one day, after my sort of fifth failed startup attempt, I called myself a serial failpreneur, and I was back on the Isle of Mull, which is a tiny, tiny island. And I was talking to some friends. I was back on the Isle of Mull, and I was talking to some friends, and they're hearing my story, and they were like, "Oh, you should apply for the TV program, The Apprentice." So I applied, got accepted, went down for the beginning of the show, ended up not going on the show that time, but I did bump into an oil broker while I was there. And that's when I decided to take the job as an oil broker. And for me, that's where two worlds collided, partying and being successful. The more I partied, the more successful I was. And this will speak loudly to the guys who are saying, they've got to do the entertaining, they've got to do the whining and dining, because that was so ingrained in me. It was so ingrained so much that, through the years, I'd created an identity around alcohol, right? So I knew that I was the pint drinker, and I knew that after a lunch or after dinner, that because I was Scottish, people expected me to understand my whiskies. So I studied my whiskies. And then I could tell people this story at lunch, and they'd be fascinated, and they'd do more business with me. And it was that simple. Get them drunk, they do more business with me, and be somebody who stands out, who knows something. So there was a lot of identity wrapped up in that. But 13 years doing that job, I met my wife, we'd started a family, and this drinking element of the business was wearing a bit thin. And I was never a problem drinker, right? So I wasn't waking up in the morning and putting whiskey on my cornflakes. I wasn't, carrying on when I went home. I didn't feel like there was any problem with alcohol. In fact, when I looked at how I drank compared to some of my colleagues, just one second.
You're right, mate. No dramas.
Tilly, I'm recording a podcast. I was never a problem drinker. I wasn't, carrying on and drinking. I wasn't waking up in the morning and putting whiskey on my cornflakes. And nobody told me I had a problem with alcohol. And yet I could look around at some of my colleagues who were drinking much, much, much more than me. And they'd be like, call me a lightweight or whatever. So it really facilitated problem drinking. And yet sometime in 2013, I started listening to this thing called Headspace on the train. And for me, this was when I first started to find some reduction in the noise in my head. And I think, unbeknownst to me, the drinking and all the sort of party lifestyle, and also the type of work, my brain had gone much, much, much noisier. I could remember crying on the way into work. I remember having all of these things, the car, the house, oil brokers, if you're a good oil broker, of which of course I was, you can make a lot of money. And yet I was absolutely miserable. And so when I started this Headspace, it gave me clarity in my mind. It gave me this thought, and these thoughts started coming through. I think alcohol is causing me more trouble than I realize. And so I approached my boss and I said, look, I'm thinking about taking a break from alcohol. And he said, you are committing commercial suicide if you stop drinking. And I think that's how the guys feel who are talking about how I need to do this for work. Like, they're saying, if I don't go for this drink, I'm committing commercial suicide. Right. And there it was, so plain in sight from my boss, who was literally telling me, I've spent the last 12 years, 11 years trying to make myself into the top broker in the world, right? I've built up a very successful business in record time. I've made it market leader in 3 years. I'm working at the world's largest oil brokerage. And here I am being told that I'm quitting all of that I make that dead if I choose to stop drinking. How much peer pressure is that? Right? It's just, It's just crazy, and it facilitates that same thought. So anyway, cut a long story short, because this, you just asked me what's my background, as you can see, I never stopped talking. But I decided to take a break from alcohol, and everything in my life got better. You know, the reality is, before I took that break, just right before I took that decision, I was consciously stepping into not being the best broker in the world anymore. I was consciously stepping into, I don't know if my wife is still going to love me. I don't know if my friends are going to like me anymore. I don't know what this is going to make me, or how I'm even going to exist in this world around me if I make this decision. And yet I'm going to do it. And I think there was always in my life, there's been this sort of background of savior. Yes, I had absolute self-destruct. Yes, I was trying to blow myself up all the time, but yes, I still had this saving noise in the back of my head. And so I stepped into that, and it was the best thing I ever did. Fitter, faster, healthier, happier, better dad, a better husband. I grew my business. I reduced our costs. IBS disappeared. Niggling health issues disappeared. Every single area of my life improved. And I think that's where we said, I said, look, this is something incredible. How do we help more people realize the advantages and the benefits of taking a break from booze? Because it doesn't matter how much you tell people, it doesn't matter how much you evangelize, it's not until they experience it themselves that they realize the impact alcohol was having on them, and how much better they can be when it's not in their life so regularly. And that's where we came up with the idea of creating a challenge, 1 year no beer.
That's unreal. So there's so many things that you mentioned that I'd love to dive in, but obviously, you know, the point where you said commercial, or your boss said to you commercial suicide, and you still stepped into it, because I know 100% that's what is running through a lot of the men's heads when they're thinking about taking time away from booze, or wanting to be able to go to a lunch and not drink so they can go home to their family not drunk, you know, or go to the gym in the afternoon. What was it within you that said, look, I'm prepared to take that risk and just put myself first?
It wasn't just me trying to save myself. It was also a wife who wasn't very happy, and a relationship which was, I mean, it's always been a very tumultuous relationship. And so I'd kind of gone along with the fact that I have a very tumultuous relationship. This lady I've chosen, she'd had a very abusive childhood. She has brought some of that with her. I try to learn myself, try to support her. She's angry. I don't want to go home on the train. I'm going to stay and have my 6th pint, whatever it is. And the trains are delayed again, or whatever it is, because I knew I was just going home to rage. So there was and because we hadn't really worked out our communication, we hadn't started marriage counseling, all of those things, which we've done an absolute plethora of now. I'd be pleased to say that our marriage is completely transformed, which it would have to be. So there were these things. So at the time, that was normalized, right? So, oh God, the wives are always like that. Oh, well, they're always pissed off. Mine too. Oh, look at the messages I'm getting, right? That's the lads in the pub. They're like, oh, well, tell her I'm not here, and so, but we ignore those things, and we ignore the health stuff that's niggling away at us, the lack of sleep, the snappiness we're having with the kids. We ignore the little bit of extra weight we've got on and just put up with it. We ignore. And this is the ambivalence, right? The ambivalence of alcohol. Ambivalence is the enemy of behavior change. As long as your behavior is in ambivalence, you will not change. And the truth is, the way you change behavior is through awareness. Now, my awareness, or true awareness, came from taking a break from alcohol. And what I see now from over 80,000 people, and by the way, we've had another look at our systems, and it's actually 138 countries, so we need to change that. But way more impressive.
Yeah,
way more impressive.
90 countries is still incredible, but 130, take it.
Yeah, I think in a few of those countries, there's one person, but we're like, yay, we'll take it. So, it just goes to show how far and wide-reaching this is. Anyway, we can come on to that. So, getting the awareness, and for most people, it's almost impossible when you're in that toxic relationship. We describe it as a toxic relationship. You are in a toxic relationship with alcohol. In fact, The truth is, if there's at any point where you feel like you need a drink, you're in a toxic relationship, because you never need a drink. Never. You don't. And this is what we help people to change their whole mindset and their whole belief around alcohol, so that they go to a place where they never need it. Never needing it might be they never drink it again, or never need it might be like where I am, which is I might drink on an occasion, but I never need it. I can do any occasion, any social situation, any grief, anything like that without alcohol. I don't need it. So the key part is, in a toxic relationship, if you think about a toxic relationship and a woman or a partner or any person who's being abused, they are completely ambivalent to that abuse, right? Because they're ignoring the things and they're trying to focus on the positive, and they're blah blah blah. And that's exactly what happens with our relationship with alcohol. Oh God, I feel absolutely horrendous on Monday morning. Oh well, it's just, another hangover from a great weekend. I'll think about all the great bits that we had and all the, oh no, my God, what did I say last night? Or what did I do? Or where did I end up? Oh well, it's just another, blah blah. It doesn't matter. Keep it quiet. Blah blah blah. So that is our relationship with alcohol. And what happens when you rip the Band-Aid off, come away from it, and not just abstain. So we'll talk about this, right? It's not just not drinking. If all we did was not drinking, then you're right. Why would you pay for that? Anyone can do that. Go and not drink for a month, or go and not drink for a year. It's actually completely different to that. It's about learning how to live alcohol-free and love it, right? And you might be able to do that in 90 days, or for most people, it's longer. And when you love alcohol-free, you're like, this is awesome. I love feeling refreshed in the morning. I love being able to do business without needing to drink alcohol. I love not feeling pressured to drink booze. I love that I've changed my identity, all of those things. Then it's so easy for you to choose later on. So it starts with getting that awareness. But just to get back very specifically to your question, because I do love a waffle, and for the guys, guys, girls, anyone who is doing the entertaining piece, let's just drill down into that for a second. So I had to really stumble into this. Bear in mind that I'd basically committed commercial suicide by making this decision. And so I was in a massive place of fear. I would be fearful going to a lunch. I can remember going to a lunch and I was trying to get smart by this time. And so I would go half an hour or 20 minutes early, so that made sure that the customers weren't there. I'd talk to the head barman or the main person there, and I'd say, look, here's 50 quid or whatever. I'm not drinking. Whatever you do not let anybody know, and serve me alcohol free whenever they order what it is. Okay. And so if it's a shot, bring me water. If it's whiskey, just make it look like it's a sin, right? So I would do that. And I remember one of the first times I did that, I sat down and everyone was like, oh, having a beer. Yeah, beer. Yeah, beer. Looking in, he was like looking at me like, yeah, I've got you, pal. Off he goes, comes back, plonks down pints, proper manly looking pints on everybody's table. Comes over to me, and he's got a freaking flowery glass with a, like patterns around it, crystal thing with a little cute little handle. He plops it in front of me, and he drops the bottle of alcohol-free beer right in front of me. And I'm like, what is this? And obviously I can't let the guys know, right? Just dead simple, so stupid. They would not have done business with me if that was in my mind that I was committing commercial suicide. Anyway, so, get it replaced and had a pint, and, well, I'll just have to have one. So there were all these failed attempts, and there were all these difficult situations. But the reality is, and again, when you look at a lot more of the positives, I totally transformed how I entertained customers. So it always used to be the boozy lunch. It always used to be that thing. And I was like, well, I don't really want to do that. And second of all, that's what every single other broker is doing, right? So you're just the same as everybody else if you're doing that. And maybe if you do something a little bit more fun, they'll remember you more than the other person. Now I'm going to change up what I do. So I started doing events. I started things like I put about 26 guys running a relay race through the Olympic Stadium in London. And we had 3 months of training, getting together in teams, banter over the boxes, lots of chat. People like, who's going to be what time? And I ran a 5K here. Was that better than a lunch? Yes, way better. It built much tighter relationships. I would do a cycling trip to Mallorca, funnily enough, a few times a year. And we'd come out here and we might have 20 blokes and we'd be cycling up the hill and we'd be having conversations about real life, about their families, about much more closer, real stuff and building much tighter bonds. You know, sure, if they want to go out in the evening and get smashed up, that's fine. But I wasn't. And then I started a spin and stake club. So we'd go to a spin class, and then immediately after the spin class, so you book 10 bikes, 10 of you go in for a spin class, usually interesting things to watch in a spin class anyway for those guys, and then head out for a stake. They might have a few glasses of wine, but it was a lot less than if they'd been drinking straight from the pub after work.
Life. It's perfect, mate.
That's my daughter putting the dog in here again, even though I asked her not to. And she's looking through the glass like,
what tricks can the dog get up to? This is awesome.
Anyway, so I totally changed up this entertaining piece, trying to be different. How did that reward me? Well, I reduced our costs by 30% and grew my business, which was already the market leader, by 50%. So it was transformational. I'd built tighter, closer relationships than people just going and getting smashed and doing the same thing over again. Coupled with the thing I talked about earlier, we actually turned that into stealth drinking. And stealth drinking was just when you first meet a customer, first have somebody, and it's like that. They're expecting you to drink, and they're almost deciding whether you're a real man or not, whether you drink, right? And that's all for them. It's not for you. You know, when you are at peace with yourself and say, whether I drink alcohol or not doesn't determine whether I am a man or not. And I just need to get completely peace with what the truth for me, like family is the most important thing. Nobody's going to argue with that. Being present for my family and being a good dad's the most important thing. Being healthy and looking after myself and caring for myself and not getting into these crazy, stupid situations and doing all that stupid stuff. That's what's important for me. I care for me. So I'm cool about me, but for you need me to drink in order for you to accept me. Okay, that's fine. I'll stealth drink. And stealth drinking looks like so easy now, especially with the alcohol-free beers. You go to the bar and you say, give me, 2 Beck's Blue and a pint glass, and you get your alcohol-free beer. Whenever somebody buys you one, you go to the toilet, you pour it away, you go back to the other corner of the bar, you pick yourself your alcohol-free beer again, and you just stick to that. Gin and tonic. Nobody needs to know there's no gin in there. It's just a gin and tonic without the gin. So this is all the stealth drinking stuff that you can get away with. And occasionally you might have to, I can't get out with this. It's a shot. It's right in front of me. Just neck it. It doesn't matter, right? But the reality is you are, yeah. And that's the stealth drinky side of things. But all in all, it was the best thing I ever did. And just one more bit on that is that what I also made the big realization is this job is making me want to drink. This job makes me miserable. This money, this taking, this crap that I do, this is making me absolutely miserable inside. And because of that, I want to drink. And if it's not drink, I want to binge on Netflix or pizza, or I'm just going to try and numb out how much I hate this job. So I need to change it. And that was obviously the beginning of huge transformation in my life.
There's some very powerful points there. I love the stealth drinking idea. You can see the entrepreneur coming out in you, always trying to innovate and problem solve. A lot of us, myself included, find ourselves in situations where you're like, I'll just do it. And it's another failed attempt, as you mentioned, but even like sneaking off to the bathroom, dropping it down the toilet and then coming back up and refilling. I think for me, I'm going to start doing that one. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
To try it. Just
find a plant pot. Find a plant pot somewhere.
Those plants are looking drunk. But even the point you highlighted, it is more so about other people, like how they perceive us when we're drinking. Am I really a man? Can I validate myself enough through alcohol to get that deal across the line? Where, as you said, you're getting into a point where you're at peace with yourself and you're comfortable and confident in, as who you are as a person or a man. That's all that really ultimately matters, and it should do business. And once again, that entrepreneur coming out in you thinking of different ways to make that experience awesome. Like I love going to the stadium and the cycle classes, and I hope a lot of the guys listening, especially for those of you who do the wining and dining for business, I want to see you riding around Brisbane or elsewhere, tagging us in photos of you doing different business meetings because of what you've heard on this episode.
Yeah. Squash, tennis, surf, anything, any kind of dopamine releasing activity is going to do the same thing as releasing dopamine standing in the corner of a pub chatting to guys. But the reality is you're going to remember the intensity of those feelings, conversations, emotions, everything else that were felt. And it's much more authentic, and it will build a more authentic relationship with your customer for sure.
100%. And even, I guess, moving that into the social anxiety sort of side of things, it is a big thing. Like I've moved past that, but I know when I was a younger fella, sort of mid-20s, I felt the need to always have a beer in my hand to fit in because I wasn't comfortable in those situations. I was like, I just got to at least sit here with one. And then people go, mate, your beer's nearly empty. Let's get you another one. And then you're on your way to a big night. But how do you find like people going through, I guess, even the stage of starting 1 year no beer or any of the 90-day challenge, etc., going through that and dealing with social pressures?
Yeah. What you touched on there, and what reminded me, I absolutely love what Cristiano Ronaldo did with the Coke, and
How
then
incredible was it?
second to that was the other player with the Heineken. Did you see that?
I didn't see the
So
Heineken one yet.
it was the following day, I think. Danish player moved the Heineken or something like that.
Yeah.
This is exactly the reason why we are in this place we are in. The 1.7 trillion industry that has been built up over decades and decades and decades of associations. In 1984, the legislation around alcohol was relaxed, and what we started to see in the UK over here, be different across the rest of the world, was that alcohol started to be advertised as a refreshment. And it was all about refresh yourself, and it was the Strongbow and the ultimate refreshment, and you can think of lots of Castlemaine 4X adverts or whatever it is. So this kind of marketing. But not just that, as well, what the alcohol companies working together, obviously with this long relationship we've had with alcohol, to really solidify this as part of our identity. And so when, men, very, very, very much so, and now more women, because you see the amount of money, wine time, things like that going around, they really pivoted to focus on women. But for men, it was all about how tough are you, how much can you drink. When you went into sport, that was the first thing you had to do. Whenever you went into a new job or anyone doing these things, you had initiations, and alcohol was always involved in these things. And it was how much can you drink, and how fast can you drink, and how much can you hold, and can you chug. And so these were put on a pedestal. The people who were good at it or could do it were up there, and we always had to check ourselves versus our relationship with alcohol. And for the lucky people who, threw up a lot in the beginning and just resided themselves and says, you know what, I'm not a big drinker. They were lucky because they couldn't even get into the game in the first place. But for everybody else, which was the majority of the people, we went, you know what, I need to make this alcohol thing a part of my identity. And so anyway, it became a really strong part of our identity in society. And then you just find out when you actually go through the year challenge, and you start to see how endemic it is in every small way. Hey mate, do you want to catch up? And you're like, he just asked me if I want to go and have alcohol. Even though he just said, do you want to catch up? I can feel it in here. I know that he just asked me because I've instantly triggered of, oh shit, how am I going to tell him that I'm not drinking? But you see, he didn't say that. He just said he wanted to catch up. But that's how ingrained it is in our society. And you see it absolutely everywhere. And you're like, no wonder we're all running around being triggered in this identity way. And of course, then you have the cultural thing, like, Australia, of course, the Aussies drink like absolute fish, or, in the UK, everyone drinks like fish, got a real problem drinking there. And, actually lots of these things are untrue. I don't know about Australia drinking per capita. But for instance, in the UK, the per capita of drinking in England is less than Germany. But you don't hear people going, the binge culture in Germany is really bad. Well, they have a different way of drinking. They drink with every meal, right?
Yeah.
But it's just as bad as binge drinking at the weekend. Anyway, so I've actually forgotten the question because I went right down the identity.
That's all good. It was all quality, but it was around the social anxiety and people feeling the need to dive into that, and why it's you spot on. I was reading a blog the other day, and the blog was saying alcohol is the only drug that people, if you say no, I'm not doing it, they'll look at you like you're weird. But if it was cocaine or ecstasy, everyone's like, if you're doing it, it's a bit frowned upon. But alcohol, it's the roles reversed, and you're like, well, technically, it's still poison.
So that is true, apart from if you're all with cocaine takers.
If you're with cocaine takers, yeah.
And same thing with if you're with mushroom takers, or ultimately, if you're with people who take the drug, they will berate you for not taking the drug.
Yep.
Whereas I love that. Alcohol is the only drug that people berate you. No, wait, you're actually missing a major point here. Alcohol is the only drug that is on every bloody store, in everyone's lips, in every place of all the world. And it's actually the world's most harmful drug. Professor David Nutt was kicked out of the government from a 30-year study of proving that alcohol is the most harmful drug, both to humans and to the wider society around, by a long margin, more than meth, more than coke, more than mushrooms, more than heroin, more harmful, right? And yet it is on every single store. You'd be better off taking cocaine for your health than you would be for taking alcohol. And you're like, well, hang on a minute, this just doesn't sound true, that we're all drinking and everything else, but it's so detrimental to our health. And what is alcohol? If you Google it, what is alcohol? It'll say it's a colorless, flammable liquid also used as a fuel source known as ethanol. It's 100% poison. There are no studies on the planet which ever said putting ethanol into the human body is good for you. Notice, let's just skip past this bit because people switch off when you start going into the whole health stuff. They're like, no, not true. It's not true. Blah, 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 blah. But that is the truth. And what we see is, if you just flick back to the smoking and the tobacco industry, and you see how prevalent smoking was in society and how cool it was, and it was done by all the celebrities and everybody thought it was cool, and it was part of people's identity because smoking had been made that way by marketing, it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same situation, and it's just as harmful. And I think that's why we're starting to see a real cultural shift with alcohol. The huge rise of alcohol-free alternatives. It's the fastest growing beverage market in the world. Millennials choosing to drink less. There's so huge rise in sober curious people coming and doing 1 year no beer, all of those things. So I almost say, over the next 5-10 years, almost everybody in the world will be reconsidering their relationship with alcohol. What we'll have instead, I don't know. Maybe it will be heroin-laced drinks instead, because apparently that's better for us. Woohoo! No, bad joke.
We'll see what's coming on. But it's even the message that you're spreading is like building that awareness, because there's so many of us that have had a poor experience off the back of a night out, whether it's been in a punch up, getting in a fight with the missus, or as you mentioned, you wake up when you get home, you're like, I don't know what I did last night. Who do I need to say sorry to? And all of these sorts of things. But even the stats that are on the website, and I saw down the bottom, it said from 90-day challenge members, but 79% of people experience improved sleep. 92% felt, noticeably better. They felt better. More productive was 71%, 81% reduced anxiety, 53% lost weight. And it blows my mind the amount of people that I see walking around who are complaining about any of those 5 things plus more
that are never told this.
Yeah.
I mean, as a perfect example of that, for instance, anxiety, which is a really big one. So, anxiety, depression at epidemic levels globally. More people than ever on antidepressants. So much antidepressants in they test the water from sewage, and there's a large proportion of antidepressants in the water around the world, right? That's just how prevalent it is. I think they say 1 in 5 people in the US are on antidepressants. So. So anxiety and depression, And yet, we have somebody, a lady who she had crippling anxiety, right? She'd like struggle to leave outside the house, crippling anxiety. For 10 years, psychotherapists, she was on heavy medication, all of this stuff. She signed up to One Year No Beer, and just after a 90-day challenge was like, I've stopped taking my anxiety meds. I've never felt in my whole life, I've never felt this amount of reduction in anxiety. You've got Ben in Dubai, who 5 rounds of IVF was told he would never get pregnant naturally because he had too low a swim count, and 100 days into our challenge, they're pregnant naturally. Why aren't we talking about that? I could go on for, I asked into the community, what one reason would you give somebody to sign up to the challenge in 2021? And there were over 500 comments in about 24 hours. And then I started to sift through them and reduce the duplicates. There's about 250 unique things in there. So 250 unique benefits, from lower blood pressure to improved sleep, improved marriage, things like I can look at myself in the mirror again, or I feel like I love myself. I feel like I'm the authentic version of me. I've lost weight. My headaches have gone, blah, blah. It just goes on and on and on and on. I've saved money. I've stopped Facebook raping myself and not knowing who I am later on. Sorry, that's a bad use of terminology, but you know what I mean when you wake up and go, what did I write on Facebook? So there are all these incredible benefits. And I think that's where we've 100% focused in One Year No Beer. Is it forget about the health thing, because I know what people say, or not forget about it, take it on board. But, my shoes are giving me cancer these days, right? We're hearing it from everywhere, that the problem with the sugar and the water and everything. So that message doesn't get through. And forget about all this other stuff. What we're talking about is there are potentially 250 benefits, and that's only the ones we wrote down there, to taking a break from booze. Things that will make you fitter, faster, more productive, healthier, happier, more clarity, better inside yourself, calmer, better with your kids, improve your relationships with people, make you better at work, not worse, right? That was the big thing about my work. The main reason why my business grew was because my brain was firing on full cylinders. I was so much faster at the math. On Friday, every single broker was hungover. I was cleaning up. So, and so there are potentially 250 benefits. However much you drink. And so this is the thing. People say, okay, this is just for people who are drinking far too much in the first place. This is for people who are drinking more than 3 glasses of wine a week, right? So the recommended amount, 14 units, large glasses, say 10 units. Even then, Dame Sally Davis, who's the head of Public Health England, said that there is no safe limit of alcohol. That's the truth. There is no safe limit. So any amount of alcohol, there's potentially 250 benefits. Isn't that worth taking a break just to find out how many of those you get? Like, I don't know what will change for you, but I absolutely guarantee right now, you can call me up and say, Ruari, you're a liar. Don't know, I'll send you an Amazon voucher or something. If you do 90 days and there aren't benefits to your life, right? And probably loads of them, and it could change your life. Is that not worth just trying to find out?
Exactly, because people look for all the other things like medications and everything else. It's like a quick fix rather than going, I have to sacrifice something for that certain period. I've done 90 days to start every year for the last 4 years. And it normally switches on at about week 10. That's when I really go, yeah, we're firing here. The mental clarity, the productivity, sleep, even my mood, like I'm not all over the shop is phenomenal. And Sam, one of the guys in our community who's at 480 odd days, his biggest thing, which hit me in the face, was the app that he uses. It tracks how much time he hasn't, that he's got back with his children. So normally when he's hungover, he's out on the beers, and it was something ridiculous it was like 17 days over 12 months that he had more time. That's a significant amount of time. Well, depending on how your kids are, I guess, but if they're good kids.
Well, he chose to put your kids, but you could have put, exercising or hanging out on a boat, or I don't know, whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah, anything else. And I was like, that's phenomenal. But let's also dive into, like, obviously the last 18 months or mid-year, it's been a whirlwind for everyone with COVID and everything like that happening. And in Australia, the statistics around people are drinking more. It's like 1 in 5 households are reported to buying 20% more alcohol, 70% more people are drinking more than normal. So that's ridiculous. And I'm assuming it's to cope with stress, anxiety, boredom. And alcohol, in my opinion, you'd be able to speak more to this, is it doesn't help anxiety. It doesn't help you relax. It just is a distraction for a moment in time. But have you noticed within your community of the 138 countries worldwide and continuing to grow, more people are jumping on board now, really trying to get away from that alcohol, or if people come in? Yeah. So for those out there who have, and for anyone listening, if you've been drinking more for whatever reason over the last 18 months, especially, I would highly recommend looking at something like this, even if it's just for 90 days, to give yourself that opportunity to experience one of the 250 benefits, or you get yourself an Amazon voucher. I'll throw in one as well. but what is the influx and the growth of your community been like as a result of that? Because it's, as you mentioned, we're more medicated than ever before. Depression, anxiety is rising, and it's proven to have a positive impact on that.
100%. Well, the first thing is that all the news all over the world was filled with the fact that people were drinking more during the pandemic. This is absolutely normal human behavior. Let's just look at that for a second. First thing is connection, a deep lack of connection. We're stuck back in our houses. We're not connecting with other people. We're over Zoom. It's just not the same as human-to-human contact. And we know now that the opposite of addiction is connection, right? So ripping out the connection. The second thing is grief. You're reading deaths every day in the paper. It's in the news. You're grieving your routines. You're grieving your gym sessions. You're grieving the loss of the the senior colleagues. So there's grief. There's all anxiety by listening to the news, and fear and doubt. Okay, so this is an unprecedented time for mental health. And our age-old friend that we have been educated for decades, that when we feel poor mental health, when we feel sad, when we feel upset, when we need a hug, when we need consoling, when we're anything negative, what do? We go and have a drink. We go and have a drink. We cry over it and have a drink. That's what we do. So I'm not surprised at all that more people chose to drink during the pandemic. And so we saw that in the stats that the news published, lovely, that, alcohol, et cetera, et cetera. However, here's what they didn't publish, that actually throughout the pandemic, alcohol sales were down immensely. Okay, there was a bit of publishing around that, but that makes sense, right? People are not going to bars, people aren't doing those things. But the truth is, more people than ever chose not to drink, right? And a total 6 million people signed up to do dry January. The highest ever was 4 million previously.
Wow.
So more and more and more people chose not to drink. More people chose to focus on their health. More people thought, this is a change of environment I need. I'm no longer going to these restaurants, able to do the entertaining. I'm no longer pressured by my staff, my colleagues. I don't have all those distractions of going to this place and that place and doing those things in the casinos and everything else. I can choose to focus on my health while I'm here. And so more people than ever were signing up to 1 Year No Beer. The second thing is, we saw a huge proportion of, so we saw a large number of doctors, nurses, and key workers commenting during the pandemic in our communities saying, 1 Year No Beer is a lifeline. I don't know how I would be getting through the craziness out there right now. And it was when all the madness was going on of frontline staff and health workers and, sleeping in corridors. And it was like, oh my God, look, we're a lifeline to the people who are keeping the country alive. We need to do more. So we rallied together, got some press, and we put out that we will support any key workers, NHS staff, doctors, nurses for free during the pandemic. We had 8,000 people join in a week. 8,000 doctors, nurses, frontline staff. And then we had, so the first thing I did was re-engage our audience. Hey, we're thinking about doing this, but we need you to come back and really engage in the community. Will you help us help these people? We had 2,500 people sign up, right? And 2,500 people supported 8,000 frontline workers from the comfort of their home, being able to support them through one of the most difficult times in their career in the world, really. So that was amazing. I'm incredibly proud of that, incredibly proud of what we are actually creating here. And this is the much, much, much bigger picture, because we realized that, there's only so many people I can talk to. There's only so many podcasts I can get on and be like, hey, this is the best thing ever. So if instead of that, what can I do is give the tools for somebody else to go and share their story, right? So you see our testimonials. We are constantly asking our community, hey, will you share your story? Will you go on a TV or a radio or a podcast? And we've got these interviews, go and share your story. But more importantly, do you want to become an ambassador? How can we help you inspire more people? And so it's not about getting us to spread the word of people changing their relationship with alcohol. It's about inspiring our members to show up and to show people that there's another way in their area. And what's happened? Well, guess what? When somebody changes their relationship with alcohol, the vast majority of people around them reconsider their relationship with alcohol. Many friends, neighbors, family members sign up, right? And they too do. And I've got so many messages of people saying, the reason why I signed up is because of my brother. And I knew that if I did it, he would eventually see the benefits and come and do it too. And exactly that happened. So it's a very, very powerful thing that we have here that's helping a lot of people.
I think that's phenomenal, and especially inspiring, and using the members' stories to get that across, because nothing's better than hearing a mate doing well. That's for me. I always buy into something where someone that I know, like, and trust has just been, had an incredible experience. Because I know for some people, especially when they even listen to this podcast, and there might be men listening to your story and everything that you're talking about, they go, nah, he's just a superstar. It's out of my reach. He was top in an oil company, XYZ, and they're continuing to feel like things are out of reach. But then when you hear all the success stories, and for everyone listening, if you are feeling this way even about this story, jump on and see the success stories, because there's people literally from all walks of life who are absolutely, like, I was looking before and it was fucking mind-blowing. So
Yeah.
it's possible for everyone. So don't feel like it's out of reach for you. It's just the importance of starting somewhere. Another really brilliant thing that you highlighted on was the power of community. When we are the leader or creating that first bit of change, and we're shaking it up for everyone, all our friends and family might think we're a bit weird, or a bit of peer pressure may come on. So it is hard. I've experienced it myself, but being able to have a community like what you guys offer, even the one that we offer for what we do, is a place where you can go, okay, when it gets tough, when my motivation feels like it's wavering, that's when I really need to lean on the community for the support to be empowered to reach my goals. And I think that's
Totally
what you guys are absolutely nailing. I love that there's access to people from all around the world. There's no excuse not to get in touch with people.
Yeah, I mean that is the shining light, and again what we are building. So we realized that it was all about the user. Isn't that funny that when you're a drug user or you're an app user? So anyway, when members and we saw that they're so inspired and they want to get more involved and they want to inspire other people. And so now we're so focused on creating those tools. So the way the app will work, the way we improve our technology, and we're hiring a whole bunch of tech team at the moment, and the way we deliver the behavior change, that is what is going to really help change the world. And I think the most important part of what we saw was, this is as we build this out for alcohol, which begins with an app experience. So I can come into an experience and I get introduced to people all over the world. I can get inspired by them. And then more importantly, once I've started to change, I can become an inspirer myself. And by helping moderate and become potentially a coach or an ambassador, I can then, have an impact on a local basis. So for instance, somebody who's like, I really want to get involved in this, and we create partnerships with for instance, a bar chain, and on a Tuesday night, they run an alcohol-free night in partnership with 1 Year No Beer, and as an ambassador that you can go down there and run your event. Our events are at Spartans, Ironmans, triathlons. They're not at disused community centers where people sit in a circle and talk about being stigmatized for the rest of your life. Like, that is great, and that is also had a huge impact for people who feel like they're addicted or have a very strong alcoholism. But this is about lifestyle, right? We want to be having meetups at festivals, at gigs, at bars, at restaurants, at sporting events. That's where we get together, because we're not choosing to live life worse. We're choosing to live life better, right? So thinking about that, and then once we've had the technology and we have the people on the ground, we then realized that this is not really about alcohol. So we kind of touched on this earlier about how you could just abstain from something you love, right? So I'm going to do a month off in January. Perfect. The rest of the world is not really drinking in January because we all do it. It's kind of easy for me to avoid my social circle because we're not drinking, right? I'm going to hide out at home and I'm going to count down the days because it's so bloody boring until the 1st of Feb when I can get absolutely shit-faced again, right? Now, what does that do? All that does is reaffirm the limiting belief that alcohol is pertinent to living a good life. You're just reaffirming all that messaging and nonsense you have in your head. So this is all it is. The reason why things like alcohol-free drinks are so powerful in helping people change their relationship with alcohol is because it's all of the psychology and none of the drug. And guess what? The vast majority of our drinking is just psychology. It's just those neural pathways that we've made up in our brain that says that alcohol equals fun, alcohol equals relaxation, etc. So we've got to unlearn that. And how does that happen? Well, that's why you sign up to 1 Year No Beer, right? So things like, I feel my trigger, and we start working through these things. Friday, I always meet the boys for a beer in the pub. Okay, well, let's break that down for a second. First of all, there's that thirst quenching piece, right? So we know that vast majority of cravings for alcohol are actually thirst. So drink a liter of water first, right? That really helps pass both those cravings. The second thing is you pent up frustration from a week of being hyper at work without relaxation, where you're looking to relax, meditation, introducing meditation, perhaps some yoga, walk, whatever it is for you, but trying to help you relax on a daily basis instead of getting to Friday and being like, God, I've got to relax. Social inclusion. I love meeting with the guys. I love releasing that dopamine. Well, dopamine releasing with the guys can be met in much better ways. Let's go to a climbing center and have a climbing lesson all together and build that camaraderie, or do that spin thing so that we're releasing the dopamine. And as I start to learn all these things, I'm going through this action plan and teaching my brain the following day, I didn't need alcohol to have fun. I didn't need alcohol to hang out with my mates. I didn't need alcohol to relax after the day. And that neural pathway is starting to change, and I'm creating a neural pathway in a different way. And that is how you change your relationship with alcohol. So to us, it was totally and utterly pointless to just take a break from booze. Yes, it's great. Yes, people do it every year and they get health benefits, but they go right back to the relationship where they were. What's the point in that? If you're going to come and take a break, change your relationship with it so that you realize you just didn't need it in your life anymore. And that's where we're the experts.
That's brilliant, because I see it all the time. Especially, you can relate it back to the fitness industry where people do 6-week challenges and they're like, righto, I'm not going to eat bad for 6 weeks and I'm not touching alcohol. And you can see them counting. First and foremost, they'll have a huge bender the night before and drink as much and eat as much as humanly possible. And then as soon as that final photo is submitted, they're back on the beers and eating all the same shit and wondering why they go, poof.
Yeah.
And they just reaffirm those limiting beliefs like you said. So I think that's incredible to change your relationships. And one thing you said at the start, which really stood out for me, because I was actually going to ask you whether you actually drank beer or anything like that. And you said, obviously, through changing your relationships, you're now empowered to the point where, you don't need beer to have a good time. You're comfortable in all situations. You're happy within yourself, which, if you're relying upon alcohol, it's, as you said, it's highlighting areas that you need to work on as an individual, whether it's your relationship, your view of yourself, self-esteem, etc. But then also being able to, if you do choose to have a beer or two, that you're comfortable that it's not going to destroy your life. You know that it's not going to, you're in complete control, which is what I guess a lot of people would be looking for when they come to the 1 Year No Beer. Is what, actually, that's a great question. I guess I want to ask, and you sort of touched on it, but what is some of the main reasons that you see people joining the program?
Yeah, well, there are lots, and I mean, the vast majority of people are searching for control. They want control of their drinking, and they feel like it's got a bit out of hand. I feel like I'm drinking a bit too much, and in that, I feel like I'm drinking a bit too much. If you could quickly flash images of all the situations they've put themselves into recently. It might be arguments with the wife. It might be blacking out for, blackouts are huge. Blackout is just another word for I can't remember what happened last night. And it's so bloody prevalent. It's ridiculous. Like, I can't remember. And you hear about, anyway, so all of these things, and what they say is, yeah, I think I'm drinking a bit too much. And it actually means this, oh my God, holy scary stuff when you really look at it. But so most people are searching for that. And what we try and say to them is, look, the fastest way to you to get to the place where you are going to be more in control of your relationship with alcohol is if you separate from it completely, like that toxic relationship piece. And what we're extremely proud of is, first of all, 95% of our members say that they changed their relationship with alcohol after their challenge. And second of all, 87% of our members choose to carry on alcohol-free after their challenge. Okay, so
7%.
yes, 80, and this is not like I'm never drinking again. It's just that they're saying, I'm not yet ready to have another drink. I'm not yet ready to undo all the work that I've done. Now, wait, pause. Almost every single one of those people felt how your listener right now is thinking, is that you thought, I want control. I want control of my drinking. And yet where they've got to is, I don't think I want to go back to the way I was. I don't want to have another drink. I don't want to ruin this feeling. I feel so good about myself right now. I don't want to go back. So that's what we're so incredibly proud of, that our program helps people to really see alcohol for the way it is and the impact it was having on their life.
Mind-blowing. I love it. And I guess just to wrap up, because I know you have a busy Friday ahead of you, within the program, so just a quick rundown on the programs that you offer. I know there's 1 year, no beer, which I'll be doing, then the 90-day, and I think, is there a 5-day, like quick start?
There's a 5-day free challenge.
Yep.
Which is the quick taster of, what is this whole 1 year no beer thing about, and what do we do? So it gives you some insights. Some of those things I've shared with you today. And then we have a 28-day challenge, a 90-day challenge, and a 365-day challenge. We have a few other bits and pieces. So Challenge Plus is our next generation of program, which by this time this podcast comes out, we'll be launching. And Challenge, ultimately, we come back to some science, which you can have a look at. If you go to Google and type in Johann Hari, a TED talk called Everything We Know About Addiction is Wrong. Yep. And he talked in summary, what his research and science has proven is that the opposite of addiction is connection. We've seen it in Portugal. It had the worst drug problem in Europe. And what they did is reintroduce the drug users. They forced companies to employ ex-drug addicts. They brought them back into society, reconnecting them, and they have one of the lowest in Europe, okay, over a decade, because we need to feel more connected as a society. So in looking at the lack of connection in our lives, okay, well, I feel that by going to the pub, but it's not true real connection. What we get, we have to emulate that when you come into 1 year no beer. So we're constantly thinking about, how do we build more connections? And that's what we've done with Challenge Plus. We're extremely excited to launch that program. So you have a lot smaller groups. You get Zooms. There's about 15 Zooms a week. There are coaches on those Zooms. In fact, you're basically paying £48.50 a month, and you're getting 15 hours of coaching a week if you wanted. Nobody's going to turn up to 15 hours. Well, they might do if they want. So very excited about that program. And then we have lots of things, further down for people, like coaching, certification coaching, and things like that.
It's incredible.
So I know what you actually asked me, which is, how does it work? So you're going to get a daily email, you get daily prompts. Those daily prompts all start to get you to think about your relationship with alcohol differently. So there's a real content piece around. Ultimately, your relationship has been made up of an education piece over decades, teaching you about alcohol's this, alcohol's that. Most of it is lies. And when we bring you and help you start thinking about it differently, a bit like this podcast, you're like, wow, that is actually true. And it helps remove the ambivalence and create more awareness. The second most and the biggest part is community. The community is so critical, and it's so key. And what happens is, when you go to oneyearnobeer.com now, or go to facebook.com /1yearnobeer, you will find for the next month or two in your Facebook feed, you will find stories from members of 1 Year No Beer. You'll find video stories, and you will find people, and you'll be like, that's just like me. That's just like me. I didn't think this was for me, and it's just like me. And you'll read about what transformed in their life. And these people are not saying like, oh, I felt a little bit better. They're not saying like, oh yeah, they're saying, I can't believe how good I feel. They're saying, I wish I'd done this sooner. I wish I'd seen 1 Year No Beer sooner. That statement breaks my heart. I'm like, I wish I could have helped you sooner. I wish I could have reached you sooner. I wish I could have got through to your idea and conveyed in my marketing better that this was really going to help you. And I'm sorry it took you a year to sign up. But anyway, so, and it's reading those stories that will then ultimately, you're like, this is too compelling. I can't look at these stories of how people's lives have shifted and not just want to give the challenge a shot. And yeah, that's when hopefully we change your life.
That's epic. And can you start at any point? Like, do you have to wait for a challenge and take, or you can just jump on the website and get cranking?
You can get started today. Just why wait? Yeah. go and get there and get signed up and start changing your life.
Gents, I'd highly recommend heading over to the website. For whether you're watching or listening, all the links will be in the show notes. So head over, click and check it out, because as I was saying at the start, I've got a wedding, or my wedding. So I definitely want to have a beverage.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm excited for it. But after that, I'm so happy and excited to get back on that feeling of, the peak performance and mental clarity, and just feeling like I'm crushing it is what I'm looking forward to. But doing it within your community, I look forward to staying connected and getting to be one of your success stories as well, which is going to be awesome.
Well, I mean, I will absolutely get you. We're relaunching it, so I'll get you on the podcast when you hit your milestone, maybe after 90 days or something like that. Ping me up, and we can share your story on the podcast about what's improved. Awesome. And if you ever want to bring me back and chat about what's happened, very, very happy and welcome to do that. So yeah, thanks for having me on.
I really appreciate your time, your knowledge, and everything that you're doing, mate, because I think this is, as you mentioned, and it really stood out to me where you said people switch off when they hear the stats and a lot of the boring stuff. You've kept, I've been so engaged and taken a heap of notes here throughout this, and it's got me motivated to want to do it now. It almost makes me want to bring the wedding forward. And I know there's going to be a lot of other people within our community that will be jumping in on the No Beer for a Year challenge.
So you've got when is your wedding?
Oh, that makes me put me on the spot now. 10th of October. So I was like, yeah.
You're right. That's a long way away. So I've got a question for you. If you could wind forward to a year from now, mm-hmm. and you said, I've done a year no booze apart from my wedding day. I just had some drinks on my wedding day. Would that be a massive success?
Yeah,
or
definitely.
Of course it would. So why wait?
Yeah, well,
this is the thing about, the traditional way of thinking about not drinking is that I must not drink anywhere during. No, what are you talking about? If you do 28 days here, or you do, that's all really helping you. The second part from this, and I know we were finishing up, but I just can't help myself.
Carry on.
It's because the kids haven't left to school yet, so I'm still trying to delay. No, I'm joking. I do really want to say goodbye to them before they go, so we better stop. So anyway, where was I? Yes. So the whole concept here is doing it in piecemeal, doing it when you can. The second really important part is that we think of these events as a reason that we can't not drink. We think of, oh, I've got my wedding, or I've got a stag do coming up. I've got this big work event that once I do that, then I'll take a break from alcohol. But we're thinking about it totally wrong. You see, the reason is that when you are challenged with something, it's the depth of those neural pathways in your brain that are triggering you to say that you can't not drink. It's the psychology in your brain. So doing it will have the biggest impact on you changing your relationship with alcohol, right? So if you go to a wedding the way you would always normally be expected to drink, if you do, which I did, my 40th birthday, where I would always have thought I was going to get absolutely plastered and not drink, what happens? First of all, I feel amazing. I'm like so proud of myself. I can't believe I did that. The second thing is the feedback loop from other people is transformational. Oh my God, I can't believe you did your 40th birthday without drinking. I can't believe you did your wedding without having a drink. I can't believe you did X's wedding or this stag do. I can't believe you were still partying at 6 o'clock in the morning in Berlin at a stag do and you weren't drinking. Hands up. Yep, that was me. And what happens is that solidifies, it gives you self-belief. It makes you realize, you know what, I am somebody who really has willpower. I'm so in charge of my body, my mind, my life, and that is a sort of not toxic, because that's what when you're drinking, the total opposite of toxic. It's like this tonic, life-changing tonic, which gives you power in so much areas of your life. So the big events, the scary events, they're a reason to get started, not to. Now, I'm not trying to convince you to not drink at your wedding. I totally understand. But you might say, you know what, actually, I'm going to reshape this. I don't need to drink for 4 days around it. I might say to the guys when they come before, look, I've actually, on a year, I'm doing it. I'm going to have a few drinks on my night. I'm actually going to pick some really nice booze, and I'm just going to drink that, not, whatever it is, it's for you. But, and I think more importantly, October's bloody miles away. So I think you should start today.
Yeah, 100%. It's a great point. And I think I wanted to also touch on that, but the events and everything like that, putting it off is definitely, and for those who binge drink, like I've used to do it and I've in a pretty good position where I don't drink a lot now, but I've noticed this year we've got bucks parties or stag do's, weddings, engagements, and it's just been non-stop to the point where I still don't get more like absolutely rat shit drunk, but it's to the point where I still notice it affects me the next day or two. Yeah. So very good point even about.
Well, you wait. When you get to 6 months or a year down and you go out and you have 5 pints, you are ruined for a week. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God. And I can't, and how tolerant was I of this poison that I could do that and then still function totally, of course I can still function. Because as we said, I don't not drink, right? I could still go and have 10 pints or 20 pints if I chose to, but oh my God, I'm going to feel awful. I mean, 20 pints, I would be absolutely dead. 10, I would be, I could easily do 10 pints before. I couldn't do anything like that now. So, and I needed that freedom. But I think the other key bit you touched on there was about the stag. Oh yes. What was really important about my identity as well, and I think this will chime in well with the lads, is that I was the first in, last out, shots shouting guy. And that's what everybody knew me as. So if I stopped being that guy, all I was going to get was, oh, you're just so boring now, you don't drink. Never, ever, ever fall into that. Don't let that be true. If that's important to you, it was important to me, right? I care what people think about me. And I was the entertainer. So I kept it up. I would be the one going to shots, but mine would be water. And people would be like, you bastard. Oh, you're not even drinking. I'm like, so I'd be doing this if I was drinking. So here we go. Next shot. I would be the one still, in order to be that person, I would have to drink Red Bull to get my energy level up. And I would still want to dance on the table. And I would still want to have the craziness because I loved that. And I didn't want to lose that part of my identity just because I wasn't choosing alcohol. So I think it was really important for me to still show up that way. If people said, hey, we're going out, I was still the fun guy. And, you don't do it anywhere near as often because trying to bring that kind of energy at midnight when people are repeating themselves 18 times over, it's like, oh my God, get me home or find me somebody normal to talk to.
Yeah, it's the worst. Well, thank you so much for all the information and the laughs and everything that you're doing. Once again, I think it is brilliant. And I know that it's just going to continue to keep growing. And as you said, 10 years down the track, there's going to be a lot of people questioning their alcohol relationship with alcohol. And I think it's a brilliant thing just on the back of Men's Mental Health Week and everything like that. It's an important thing to address because a lot of us, it is a vice and it's one that's not doing us any favors.
Yeah, completely. Absolutely. So thank you so much for having me on and let me share the message. And if you're listening and this has even tickled your thoughts, get yourself to oneyearnobeer.com. Check out facebook.com/oneyearnobeer. There's a ton of free resources. There's a free 5-day challenge. There's a podcast up there with lots of interviews of members you listen to. And when the time's right, which will never be a perfect time, come and do the challenge and we'll help you change your life.
Unreal. And I'll have all those links in the show notes wherever you're listening or watching from. Thanks so much.